Hello, I'm David Hunt and welcome to The Art Hunter. My guest today is an overachiever and you'll understand why when I just read this little intro. So if you fall asleep, don't worry, he'll be on later. He is a producer, conductor, pianist, director, composer, and a hell of a nice guy who walks his dogs on a regular basis here in St Kilda, and I see him out there walking his dog. He's good at picking up poo, I might add. At the age of 19, he was that pianist on the Bert Newton's Good Morning Australia. Years on, he joined Australian Idol as musical director in 2003, producing many of the albums and singers for the Idol artists. He's had a #1 ARIA album with MSO, directed Channel 9's Carols by Candlelight, hosts his own TV show, which I want to talk about because I love that show, it's brilliant. He's rubbed shoulders with the likes of Bert Bach, I've got to talk to him about that, Oprah Winfrey. He was musical director on Todd McKenney's The Boy from Oz, really need to talk to him about that. And he's been involved in the Olympic Games and Commonwealth Games with his magic touch. He has also done the concert on Sydney Harbour for Australia Day, and we will be chatting about the Australian Pops Orchestra. John Foreman, welcome to The Art Hunter.
Thank you, it's great to see you and great to be in this fantastic setup here at the Alex Theatre. This is wonderful.
And you are an incredible... Do you look at, hear me talking about your resume there? And I left a hell of a lot of things out because I couldn't fit them all in. Do you look back on yourself and go, wow, I can't believe what I've achieved?
Look, it's interesting. One of the lockdown activities has been tidying up cupboards that I've wanted to tidy up for ages and going through, like all of us have done. And yeah. I've found some old VHS tapes. So I have had a bit of a touch of nostalgia over the last couple of months. But it is interesting hearing you read all of that or talk through all of that stuff that, I've always been, I guess, a mixture of an optimist and a pessimist. And I guess what I mean is that whenever I'm in any particular job, I sort of think to myself, I wonder how long this particular job is going to keep. Like that was with Bert's Good Morning Australia. Will it last a year? Will it last 5 years? Will it last 10 years? So I've been incredibly lucky that I've been able to go from job to job because, for many musicians, that's basically what their career is. It's just one job followed by another job followed by another job. So, yeah, I've just been really lucky to have had things happen at the right time.
But you know what? It's you. Your personality, your mannerism towards, everyone around you, and obviously you're extremely talented with what you do. Now, let's talk about those heady days of, you're a 19-year-old with Bert Newton, a legend here in Australia. What was it like? You must have learnt so much.
It was absolutely fantastic. I learnt so much from Bert and from the team around him. I remember the very first day and we were live to air.
Yeah.
And the thing that really stood out about him was the fact that he was sort of sitting there chatting away to, the floor manager or whatever else, and someone called out 1 minute, and normally on a live show I would have expected sort of this raising in the level of tension and awareness as the lead up to the zero happened. But he was just completely nonchalant about the whole thing, and he was counted down from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and he just continued talking exactly the same as he had been to everybody around him without raising any level of speech pattern or any increased anxiety of any kind. And I think that really was part of the secret of his success. He was very much, he wanted to save the magic for on camera.
Yep.
If there were old friends, for example, who he'd known for years and years, they would often be sort of brought in very much at the last moment during a commercial break, so that Bert, it's great to see you, blah, 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 would all happen on camera. It was all everything was for the audience to enjoy. And another memory that sticks out, you mentioned Todd McKenney and The Boy from Oz, and in the very first year of the show was I'm pretty sure it was the first year. You'd be able to qualify this by what I'm about to tell you, but it was when Peter Allen died. And we were I think the news came through when we were in the middle of a live show.
Oh, okay.
And a researcher came in and said, look, Bert, just letting you know, the news is about to cover this in the 11 o'clock morning bulletin, but we just want to let you know Peter Allen has passed away. And there was we were in the last commercial break, and the floor manager said, oh, Bert, you've got 44 seconds to close the show today.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. There was sort of a little bit of quiet. Then we came up out of the break, and Bert did this 44-second word-perfect eulogy without any scripting or any research notes or anything like that, counted down to 0 by the floor manager. I just sat and watched this and thought, well, that's sort of radio technique. It's years of live experience, and it's just those sorts of skills to be able to bring a network show out on time to the second with a brand new piece of information and done in a way that was thoughtful and respectful and poignant and beautifully scripted, even though there was no script. And I just watched it thinking that this man's a genius.
He is. And there's only certain people that have that quality, aren't they? You know, the whole ad-libbing and which you're pretty good at ad-libbing as well, aren't you? And you've always got a joke. I always love that. When I see you in the park with the dog, there's always a funny joke that comes, usually a dad joke.
Yeah, no, I do love the old dad jokes. Fred doesn't laugh at them though, as you can see. He's thrilled with this whole thing, by the way. He's absolutely, this is him riveted. This is...
How old is Fred?
He's 9.
Right, okay.
Yep.
So getting on a bit, but still a happy dog though.
Oh, look at him, he's thrilled. He can hardly contain his glee. No, I mean, that's another thing that I learned really from watching Bert was as I say, the ease, like yourself, the ease with which he just conducted himself on a daily basis on camera. And yeah, it was, I mean, I just loved everything about working on that show behind the scenes. I mean, being at a network, I sat in one night and watched the news go to air from the control room just to see how that worked. And I think I watched the Darren Hinch 7 o'clock current affairs show go to air. Not so much to see the content, but just to see how it was put to air and how the director interacts with the director's assistant, just to see the machinations of a live television. Because I still am fascinated by that world of live television and how, especially when it is absolutely live to air and you've got, parameters either side of you where you have to be timed out by a certain second. And it was, fascinating and a great experience for me to be at Network 10 for sort of 12, 13 years and just being in the building and being able to watch all of these things happen.
So, music. When did you learn? And was it piano that you learned? It was?
Yes, I started on the piano, and really my parents were my first teachers. My not officially, but my dad taught me how to play chopsticks on the piano at a
I love hearing stories like that.
Great, and also, Heart and Soul.
Yeah,
where you do the one finger. But the beauty about both of those is they were sort of duets. It's like a four-hander thing. And so...
Fred's getting excited, he moved.
Yeah, he really only gets excited if we talk about Bach. There we are, that's one of your dad jokes for you.
Boom, boom.
Yeah. So, yes, that I think was part of the reason why I loved it so much, because it was like a game to play, especially with Dad, sitting up at the piano. It was like a fun, it didn't ever feel like a chore or something that I had to do, go and practice the piano. It was like, oh yeah, good. It was like a toy to play with. And then I started learning formally when I was 6.
Wow, that's young, although normal in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I think it's not a bad age to start. And I think that, I don't have any evidence to back this up, but I just have a sneaking suspicion that music is a bit like, people say it's like a second language, but I think it actually is, in as much as, if a person grows up with 2 languages in the house, it just becomes like second nature.
Sure.
I tried to learn French and German at school, and I could sort of slowly, badly string a sentence. I've forgotten it all now, but it was a struggle. Like I didn't naturally sort of take to it in the way that like a child who's learning from a parent that's speaking the language would do. So I think that learning at that age, especially as I was sitting at the piano at 3, 4, and 5, just sort of not doing anything structured or formal, but working out. I sort of vaguely remember working out what a C major chord was and what a C minor chord was. I didn't know what they were called, but I remember thinking, oh yeah, if I space these notes out, they sort of sound, that sounds familiar to me. That sounds like a sound I recognise. So it felt sort of easy in a way, or fairly natural, if that makes sense.
And also that you were working it out without actually being told, which...
Yes.
Are you a child genius?
No, and no. The thing is that what I struggled with, and I think it's important to know like what's easy and what's a struggle.
Okay.
So for me, the struggle was reading music. I was fine with reading words because I learned that from Sesame Street, Kermit the Frog, and Ernie and Bert, and all of their friends. They taught me how to, what all the letters meant. But when I first started to read music, that was very slow, and I found that I'd be sort of. Okay, like one note at a time, sort of slowly making my way through it. So, and one of my early piano teachers had this theory. Again, I don't know if it's based on any evidence, but it seems to have borne out in my life's experiences that there are two types of musical brain. One that can read really well and really quickly, but doesn't necessarily memorize or extemporize very well, and the reverse. The people that can memorize and improvise, but struggle a little bit with the reading, have to work on it. That was me. I was in that category. So, when I was quite young, you could play me a not too complicated tune and I'd be able to work it out on the piano.
Yeah.
In the same way that if you said to a young person who has parents speaking two languages, could you translate this? They sort of be able to do it without really thinking about it.
Yep.
But the reading side of it, I had to really... So I had to really struggle with. I have great admiration for people who, at an audition panel, and you've got 50 people coming in and singing a song, and they put their music in front of the piano player and he or she just sits there and plays it.
I know.
If it's got chord symbols on it, then I can do it. If it doesn't have the chord symbols on it, I struggle and I panic and I'm sort of, this is a nerve-wracking thing. So again, that was the other thing I learned working with Bert and with all the producers on that show. This was pre-email in the days of sort of fax machines. And one of the producers... So I would turn up every morning not knowing who was going to be on that particular day in the first couple of months. And they would come in with their music and I'd be sitting there at 7:30 for an 8:30 show thinking, oh, goodness gracious. But the producer said, you can request the music be delivered by the day before. I said, can I do that? Can I make that sort of a demand? This is like I'm a 19-year-old saying, I must have the music the day before. And I thought, actually, it's probably in the performer's interest that I do look at the music the day before. So, then I could grab it and write little chord symbols all over it, and then I was right.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on.
Yes.
You got a huge break. It was, like groundbreaking when it came. I'm talking about Australian Idol.
Yeah.
Musical director on that. Wow. Like what you'd already been doing, John, on Bert Newton was pretty exciting. But then this leap into, like primetime TV.
Yeah. Heady days, as you say. And it's interesting because, again, I remember thinking a couple of things. One was that people did start sort of treating me a little bit differently in a positive way. And I remember thinking, I'm no better a musician than I was a month ago.
Yeah.
I'm just on a bigger show.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm suddenly better of a person or more qualified than I was a month ago. It just so happens the show I'm on has more people watching it than the show I was doing in the morning.
Yep.
And that was and then you see that everywhere. People have success and they're treated differently because of their success, but their skills have not changed, from what they were 2 weeks before the huge success.
Yep.
So I was always mindful of that and always mindful of the fact that, if my life's trajectory had been different, I'd be still playing at birthday parties and weddings and bar mitzvahs and, which is, absolutely fine. But I've just been lucky to have had those breaks. So yes, it was a great era. And especially in the first couple of years when we hadn't really been exposed to that sort of what we call now reality television. So it was a bit more real. It was a little bit less, it was still produced, but it was a little bit less produced so that the things that happened a little bit more naturally.
Yep.
And I think that may be part of the reason why those people from that era, and if you go back and I name the names like Guy Sebastian, Jessica Malboy, Ricky Lee, Anthony Kalia, Casey Donovan, there's quite a lot of success from that era. Perhaps compared to some more recent of those sorts of shows. And I think it's because, first of all, there was no Netflix, there was no, YouTube wasn't a thing, there was not really much competition.
Hey, there were 4 or 5 channels.
That's right.
That's it.
So each channel had much more significant sort of impact at the time. And, you know, our final shows got millions of people watching at the Opera House. But also I think there was a genuine sort of connection between the audience and the contestants, that we really wanted them to do well, and we hadn't really seen anything quite like this before. So I think, and they're all wonderful performers. So for me, the joy of that was bringing live musicians back onto television, because I'd grown up watching Jeff Harvey, Tommy Tico, and, you know, the Don Lane Show with the Don Lane Show Orchestra and the Channel 9 Orchestra and the Channel 7 Orchestra. And I remember working on Bert's show, as wonderful as it was, but it was just me and a piano.
Yep.
Occasionally we get in a drummer and a bass player, you know, if the budget extended to that.
Oh, that would have been a big day.
It was a big negotiation with the producer. Could we spend, you know, this money to get two people in? But, you know, that's the budget of the world of morning television. But yes, all of a sudden, you know, the show was doing exceptionally well. 10 had a hit on their hands, and the format that we'd inherited, it was originally a British show. We all think of American Idol, but it was called Pop Idol.
Of course.
Originally in England and then spread around the world.
Yep.
And the format, if I'm not mistaken, was sort of, let's say, a dozen finals shows, of which one was a big band show and the rest were backing track. That was the format. So we would still have to record the backing tracks every week because each artist had their own particular arrangements that had to be done. But when we got to the big band show, the reaction was great from the audience. They loved seeing the musicians on stage. And I remember having a conversation with the producer. We had, you know, there's a producer, there's associate producers, there's a music producer. Like, you know, these shows had such wonderful budgets. And so the music producer was very much in favour of trying to get the live musicians on stage, as was I. I remember the big executive producer or maybe it was the production manager, or maybe it was the producer's assistant, I can't remember. Somebody with producer in their name, in their title, said something to the effect of, well, if you guys can do up a budget for this, and if it's too expensive, we'll let you know. Otherwise, that should be fine. So we came back next week.
Yeah.
So we had 1 week with big band, which, you know, I'm sure many of your audience will know is like trumpets, saxophones, trombones, and rhythm section. And we came back the following week with that. On camera left and on camera right was a string section with harp and you know, and French horns and wood, you know, classical woodwinds. And the audience loved it, and the producer loved it, and the musicians loved it, and it stuck. It's just one of those. And I think that this is part of the reason why that was emulated around the world, because it was season 2, and we did The Prayer, Anthony Callea's sort of one of his breakthrough moments on that, which of course was a big feature for the orchestra as well. And I'm pretty sure that night one of the American producers was in the audience. I thought, wow, this is great. This is so much more impactful than having backing tracks.
Yeah.
So for me, one of the most satisfying things was sort of bringing back that golden era of the live orchestra on television, which is really like the 60s and 70s when that was happening. And in the 80s and 90s, I remember watching TV thinking, well, this is probably, I mean, aside from Jeff Harvey's fabulous midday show band, but the extravagance of having, you know, an orchestra with strings and a harp player and a couple of classical woodwinds, I thought may never happen again on TV. So I was thrilled when it did.
Well, somebody that actually was very well known for big orchestras, Bert Bacharach.
Yes.
Now, you met him. Tell us the story. He must have been a bit of an idol for you.
It was absolutely... I was starstruck to meet him. And again, that was in the days when Idol was riding high, and we just completed a sort of a late night series on Channel 10. And my producer manager, who's been my manager for, I don't know, 20 years now, we went in and did this pitch to the head of programming at Channel 10, which was, Bert Bacharach's coming out to Australia. We've been in contact with his management people. He's open to this. We think we should do a primetime special featuring Australian artists singing Bert Bacharach songs with an orchestra on stage, and then bring Bert out at the end, have an interview, and then he can sing a song. And they looked at it and said, yeah, this sounds good. It was, again, because Idol was such a hit at that time, the idea of a show... So we were on after Idol one night. So Idol was, you know, 7:30 to 9:30 or something, a 2-hour finale, or 2-hour... result show, maybe it was 8:30. I can't remember exactly, 8:30 to 9:30. We were on straight after at 9:30.
Yeah.
So we just kept the same audience. The appeal to 10 was the idea of sort of extending the programming
of course.
for the evening. So yeah, and he was absolutely delightful.
I could imagine.
Down to earth,
Yep.
friendly, you know, a muso's muso who, you know, he came and sang and he chatted, and yeah, it was just an absolutely magical experience.
Yeah. And the ratings were good?
Yes,
So
we did
you
well.
proved them right.
Well, the beauty is that yes, that's right. There was no sort of resistance to the idea. They were very happy with. I mean, again, it's been a while since I really engaged in that sort of world at this level, but it was, I guess, proof positive that if it's done the right way, music can do well on television. There's been this debate over years about, you know, can music rate on television? And I think that's sort of come about because, you know, without wanting to get into too much sort of the nitty gritty, but, you know, they have minute by minute ratings on networks. And what'll happen on a show like in the old days, like Letterman, is that when the music act came on, usually at the end, the ratings would drop.
Oh.
Now, the reason for that
Okay.
is because you tune into Letterman to watch Letterman.
Right.
You know, actually, I don't think people are tuning into Letterman to watch music. If I'm watching, well, in the old days, sorry, I touched my mic there. In the old days when I was watching, you know, when Letterman was on, I would tune in to watch him and to watch the guests that he was interacting with. And if you want to watch a music show, you would tune in for that. So I think when music is presented well on TV and when it is the focus of the show, like The Voice, like Australia's Got Talent, like Idol, like Carols by Candlelight, when the music is the focus, people love it. If it's a chat show, then then that explains why those ratings moments aren't as strong.
Yeah.
So I think that there's been a bit of a misunderstanding about that and missed opportunities for more music to be on TV.
Now, one moment of yours that I thought was absolutely brilliant, along with so many, was when you had your own music show. And unfortunately, you know, the funding didn't keep on going because television all of a sudden was going into this reality show and this, that and the other. You know, like, let's talk about that because it was a bloody good show. So congratulations on that show.
Thank you. It was great fun.
Yep.
I loved it, as I'm sure you love doing this. You know, it's your opportunity to catch up with people and to have a chat. And yeah, it was it was during the Idol era, and it was really it was a great opportunity to catch up with people from all different walks of musical life, and yeah, it was just a fun thing to do. Yeah.
But unfortunately, they didn't stick with it, and they should have. But
well,
anyway,
look, it's interesting. I mean, I think those shows could potentially come back.
they could.
I mean, the Bacharach show actually was sort of an extension of that particular series. The Big Night In is what it was called. And so while we didn't continue on 10, we had a sort of, unusual renaissance last year with Arts Centre Melbourne, albeit a very different sort of format, but we kept the same name. So the concept of catching up with people as you're doing now, having a chat, listening to some music, I think is, it's hard to know whether it would work in today's sort of competitive TV environment where there are so many things to choose from.
I think television have got to rethink, you know, commercial television, and now is a perfect time they should be doing something like that with you. But anyway, we'll get off our soapbox and move on. All of a sudden there is this show called The Boy from Oz, which we all know that, you know, like, it went to Broadway and we'll get to it. But Todd McKenney did the most extraordinary job as Peter Allen.
Yep.
You mentioned about Peter Allen. The music's incredible, the story's incredible. Here you are, musical director of this incredible show that toured Australia called The Boy from Oz. Tell us about that experience.
Yeah, look, it was fantastic. I should say I didn't work on the very first iteration of it. The one that I did was when Jeannie Pratt restaged it at the Arts Centre and then in Sydney as well.
Right, yep,
so
that's right.
It did tour, so I had that option, but I should just credit, you know, Max Lambert and all the people that put together the original production because that was really groundbreaking and, you know, a brilliant production. I don't want to take credit for that because I didn't do it, but the one that Jeannie Pratt put on at Hamer Hall and then in Sydney featured Todd, as you say, and he was just absolutely brilliant in that role. He just...
Do you feel sorry for him that, you know, like, but you can understand why they went with Hugh Jackman, you know, because he was a big film star and he was Australian. Todd wasn't known overseas.
Yeah, I agree with both of those statements. I feel bad for Todd that he didn't have the opportunity, but it makes perfect sense that they chose Hugh Jackman because of his, and I didn't see him in that role, but I'm sure he would have been absolutely brilliant. So yes, I don't know how Todd felt about it, whether he felt sort of aggrieved or whether he felt, oh no, fair enough,
I think mixed feelings, a little bit of both, but of course he couldn't say too much for his career-wise.
No, but I mean, look, he was so brilliant in that role. I think he really studied Peter Allen's performances, watched him on YouTube and on other television, on television programs that he'd done in the past. And I think it was great to tell an Australian story in a big Broadway-style musical. And I think we're reminded through that show of the brilliance of Peter Allen's songwriting. Well, that's what I was going to go there, yeah. What do you think of his songwriting? I think he's a genius songwriter. And we all think of, I Still Call Australia Home, which is a great hit for him, but also the fact that he wrote things like I Honestly Love You for Olivia Newton-John, and of course the iconic Tenterfield Saddler.
Did you ever see him live?
Yes. On one occasion, I did an earthquake appeal concert for the Newcastle earthquake because I was a Newcastle boy and I hadn't yet started working with Bert. So I was an unknown person at that stage, but I was brought on with Sue Cruikshank as, the act representing Newcastle, and Peter Allen was on the same bill.
Yeah.
It was this incredible night at the Sydney Entertainment Centre with Peter Allen. Olivia Newton-John was there as well, and he was just absolutely brilliant with Tommy Tico in the orchestra.
Oh wow!
And if you just sort of picture that for a moment, the brilliance of seeing Peter Allen singing, Everything Old is New Again with Tommy Tico and the Symphony Orchestra, it was just a magic night.
Yeah, I saw him twice in concert.
Where did you see him?
Well, I'm originally from Adelaide, so
right.
He toured, and I saw him on.
Where did he perform in Adelaide?
Festival Theatre.
Right. How many does that? That's
2,000
right.
2,000 people. Yeah. So I went back 2 nights in a row.
Was it brilliant? Obviously,
it was extraordinary. I've seen a lot of performers in my day, but he was right up there. Yeah.
See, that would have been great because the thing I was talking about was like 2 or 3 songs as part of a variety show.
Yep.
But to have him perform for the whole night,
did
he have like the live band and the maracas?
Everything. Yeah. But the one brilliant part right at the end, he, instead of having a mirror ball drop, he put on a cape that was mirror balls, like mirrors all over it, and stood on the top of the piano and turned around, the lights went down.
Brilliant.
Was just amazing.
That's great.
Of course it was. He didn't get on a camel though. That was Radio City Music Hall in New York.
But see, I mean, that just also illustrates, in a way, his brilliance, but also the brilliance of the sort of anonymous people, the wardrobe designer or whoever. It's like some incredibly clever person came up with that idea. Maybe it was him, but maybe it was someone saying, hey, Peter, I got this great idea.
Yeah, probably was. Yeah.
And we all sort of benefit from those sorts of experiences and those sorts of people.
All right. This little thing that came to Australia a few years back into Sydney called the Commonwealth Games.
Oh, yes.
What was your involvement there?
Well, it's funny actually that, considering that I could never catch a ball and I was always the last person chosen for any sporting team.
Is that just a natural with people
musicians?
Yeah.
Probably. I don't know many. There might be some. In fact, there's a football team. I think it's football. It's one of those games involving kicking things around, soccer, football, something, across from where we are at the park there, with some pretty famous musicians who take part in it. But I think they're probably more from the rock and roll side.
They
are
more rock and roll,
probably more likely to be the type of people that can catch a ball. But yeah, so there's sort of an irony, I think, associated with the fact that I finished up having this involvement in Commonwealth Games and Olympics as a songwriter. And it all came about, again, through just that idea of being an optimist. But also, it all goes back to when I was in year 10 and I had to audition for something and I was really terribly nervous about doing this audition. And my school teacher at the time said, well, if you audition for this and you don't get in, all you've lost is 10 minutes of your lunchtime, and you're no worse off than you are now. So when the Olympics came around, I thought, well, I might as well write a song for this and send it to SOCOG. And if that, it probably won't be successful because there'll be thousands of people doing this. But if I'm not successful, what have I lost? A couple of days of songwriting, and, I'll have fun writing the song. So what have I got to lose? So I sent the song through to SOCOG, and, a little while later got a note back, a phone call, fax, I can't remember what it was in those days, saying, well, we quite like your song, but we think the bridge needs a bit of work. I remember thinking, oh, that's good. That's not a no, is it? That's we're engaging with you and trying to improve, what you're doing. So that led to the Commonwealth Games, which was over in Manchester, which was the handover ceremony. So Sydney Olympics was Tina Arena and the orchestra singing a song, towards the end of the ceremony. And then Manchester was the bit where they say, right, Melbourne's next, and they hand it over to Melbourne, and Melbourne does sort of 8 minutes of thing. And Vanessa Amorosi got up and sang my little song, and it was pouring with rain, and she got drenched, and the Queen had the little umbrella, looked like she,
didn't want to
rather be anywhere else. One of her incredible duties that she's performed over the decades that she's been the monarch. That was another amazing experience.
Then did this top it? Sydney Harbour, Australia Day, ABC TV, Josh Peterman singing. It was spectacular. Now, I know Josh, and we're going to talk a little bit more about Josh. Yeah. That must have been an extraordinary night for you, John.
Yeah, it was. And we've both known Josh for quite a while. And I think it's rare to see those breakthrough moments nowadays where one thing can make such a big difference. But it was just the right moment, the right environment, the right piece, and the right singer, the right song, the right singer. And so Josh sang Nessun Dorma as part of the Australia Day broadcast on ABC. And it was seen by producers over in London who said, oh, Winnie, we'd like to see you. Oh, who are you? Oh, we're the producers of Phantom of the Opera on the West End. Oh, okay. So as a result of this, John, the performance on Australia Day opened the door, but then Josh actually had to earn it on his own merit by turning up and doing thousands of auditions, or like that. They, as I understand it, I'm sure Josh will tell you this in more detail when you chat with him, but they put you through the ringer because they have extremely high bar to jump over to be the Phantom of the Opera on the West End. And Josh jumped it and was, Australian boy made good as the Phantom on the West End.
Until COVID.
Until COVID hit. And I know he's going to be doing it here in Australia again next year. I can tell your audience he's going to be joining us on New Year's Eve at Hamer Hall, all being well, with the Aussie Pops Orchestra.
Okay. Which
is very exciting.
Fantastic. Yeah. What a great show. Because you were musical director on an album that he did.
That's right.
Which was an excellent album, so congratulations on that front.
Thank you. Yeah, he was great to work with on that. He's, multi-talented performer, and that was a really fun project to do.
Yeah. So New Year's Eve, Hamer Hall.
Yeah.
With who? That little orchestra that you were involved in, which is called?
Yes, the Aussie Pops Orchestra. And it's... we're all, what are we now? Mid-November. So the countdown is on to the end of the year, unless your fans are watching this slightly later. But I guess there's a sense of hope and optimism that the trajectory for the arts will continue to improve, because it's been such a tricky year for so many people. Yep. And so for the Aussie Pops Orchestra, this is we did one little...
It's not called Aussie Pops, by the way, is it?
Well, the Australian Pops Orchestra is the official name.
Yeah, but because you're so in with it, in Aussie Pops.
The Aussie Pops, that's right. And that's just what everybody ends up calling it. I don't know why, but...
Because people would be Googling and go, I can't find Aussie Pops.
Oh, look, go to apoconcerts.com or Arts Centre Melbourne's website. But I suppose the beauty of this is that, there is a sense now of hope and optimism that things are on the way back. And the orchestra, apart from doing stuff online and one corporate gig, hasn't actually done a show for the general public for This will be the first show in 2 years.
Wow.
So it'll be an emotional night for the
Yeah,
musicians, an
yeah.
emotional night for the orchestra. I think it's a fitting sort of end to the year and start to the new year to say, all right, let's see in the new year with music and laughter and great singers. So yes, it's Josh who, as you know, as we were just discussing, Phantom of the Opera on West End and about to become Phantom again here in Australia next year. And Marina Pryor, who was the first ever Christine in Phantom of the Opera here in Australia.
Hey.
So we haven't worked out the details yet, but I think they have to do some sort of magical duet, you know.
I'm sure
don't you
they
think?
might.
So yeah, we're very excited about that lineup, and as you can see, Fred is completely
very
thrilled
excited,
with
yeah.
the whole idea.
Now, tell us, what is the Australian Pops Orchestra?
It's an orchestra that's been going for just over 40 years, and it was
And
started...
you've just taken control, is that
Yeah,
right?
what a great time to start running an orchestra, 2019.
Yeah.
Who knew what was about to happen? I know,
Hey,
Fred.
he did. He knew.
You're quite right. Fred advised me against it, didn't you, Fred? What do you think? If you think it's a good idea, say nothing. Good boy. Okay, he thinks it was actually a good idea in retrospect.
Big yawn.
Yep. He's
Dad, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You're like, another job you're doing.
We need to pick up the pace, don't we, Fred? That's my fault. Sorry about that. Fred's getting tired. No, actually, Fred yawns when he's excited. I've learnt so many things from this dog, but apparently look at that. Now, apparently when they're about to go somewhere, they yawn with a sense of anticipation and excitement.
Okay.
But anyway, back to the Aussie Pops Orchestra.
Yes.
Started by Kel McMillan back in the 1980s. And it's an orchestra, I guess, based on the Boston Pops and the Philadelphia Pops, which is an orchestra to play popular classics and Broadway tunes and, you know, everything from sort of Puccini to Gershwin to everything in between.
Yep.
In the last year or two under COVID, we've shifted a little bit to incorporate more contemporary music, you know, and we've had the chance to work with you know, people like Dami M and Isaiah Firebrace. Last year we did a concert which was on Channel 10. We didn't have a live audience, but Marsha Hines was there and Hearts was there. So we've moved into that area in terms of what the musicians can do. But the New Year's Eve is sort of back to the traditional heartland of, as I say, people like Marina and Josh. And I mean, the orchestra, even before I took over, did some amazing things over the years. I think they worked with Ray Charles and they backed Andrea Bocelli when he toured Australia.
Oh, okay.
And then I suppose this probably sums it up. So about what the orchestra is and what they stand for. So Dame Joan Sutherland's farewell concert in Melbourne was with the Aussie Pops Orchestra. And she performed light opera and some musical theatre stuff, which she'd always wanted to do. And you know, whereas the heavy stuff would be, you know, what the audience might expect from sort of her with a traditional orchestra or, you know, one of the state symphony orchestras. With the Aussie Pops, it made sense for her to do, you know, some of the light opera and music theatre stuff, which she loved performing, I'm told.
What's next? I'm sure you've got 101 ideas running through that head. Well, all of a sudden you've got New Year's Eve you're working towards, and I'm sure there's stuff in the new year. But, you know, like, is there a moment, John, where you sit back and you think, I want to do something that's just so extraordinary, or do you wait for people to come along, or have you already got something in mind?
No,
don't tell us if you don't want to.
No, you see, now you ask that question, it makes me think, well, maybe I need to do something more interesting. Like, you know, it's an inspiring question to ask. It's a very good question. I mean, I am, I guess, thinking as much about the orchestra as anything else at this point in time, because for the next
touring, maybe? Or?
The next couple of years, I think, will be sort of mission critical for the orchestra, and we will, with any luck, be announcing soon a program for 2022, which is not something we've done for a while. So I think getting that organisation back up and running after this period of COVID is important. But apart from that, I don't know. Maybe we should brainstorm when I'm walking the dog one day.
Well, John Foreman, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you today. And do you know what? Congratulations on an absolutely brilliant career. And I know that, you know, like, there is something in the back of your mind that you would be planning something huge in the future, or it will come your way.
Well, thank you.
It will come your
very
way.
kind of you, and thank you to you and your crew. Yes, we're nearly done, Fred.
You can go for a walk. Oh no, you went for a walk before you came here.
Well, no, that's right. I took a little plastic bag to the garbage tin just before. That's how we know Fred's been so. Right.
He knows it's over.
He knows. That's right. I told
come
him.
Say hello.
Yeah, come and say hello to Uncle David. Hello, Uncle David. What do you think, Fred?
All right.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I've gone off topic. Yeah. No. Thank you very much for having me and to your crew, and congratulations on this wonderful initiative to give the arts a platform online and on television, and to your audience on Channel 31 as well for watching. It's wonderful, and
thank you, John.
Thank you for having me on your show.
Pleasure. I'm David Hunt, and you have been watching The Art Hunter. He could take over. It should be his show.
No, don't be silly.
See you, folks.